We're going to have a special guest speaker. Many of you have been seeing him. He's there. He's got his dog is with him, and this is Wotko. So I have the pleasure of going ahead to introduce him to you. So Wotko is a Nahuatl anti-speciesist and queer activist and community organizer from Monterrey, Mexico, with over 30 years of experience advocating for indigenous, animal, and TG rights. There we go. Wotko founded Faunaccion to help Mexican activists work effectively with local institutions. And he's currently working on 2 food justice projects, El Molcajete, a food education program on wheels in Mexico, and the Chestnut Tree Reclamation Project in Tennessee. So I'm really thrilled that Wotko's joined us today, and he's a dear friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. I was just thinking about this today, how we met at this animal rights conference so many, many years ago. And I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us about international activism. So how do you feel? Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for organizing this webinar
Oh,
and
you're
for your
welcome.
introduction. That was very kind. And yeah, we've been around for a while, I guess. Both of us working in different things. Like you, when I met you, I remember you were doing also activism with art and how to get the message there for animals. So you've been doing all this very interesting work, and I've been following you for a while, and so I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And I may turn off my webcam, but I'm still here. I just want you to know that, and then we can focus a bit more on you and what you're going to share with us today. So thank you for doing this. I'm really excited to hear all of your wonderful wisdom.
Mhm. Thank you. So, should I just start speaking now?
Yes,
Yeah.
please go right
Okay,
ahead. The
cool.
floor is yours.
No, thank you. Well, I wanted the people that also joined this call to thank you for your interest in what I have to say about activism in Mexico. I do think that it's very important for animal rights to always be in solidarity and support, um, the movement worldwide, but especially in Mexico, in relationship to the U.S. because we are neighbors and there is a, historic relationship, across the border with Mexico. With the United States. So I think it's important to, take an interest on activism in Mexico and try to support. I know that many groups have crossed the border now that are in Mexico, but that doesn't mean that we cannot still support activism in Mexico by Mexican groups or the activism that even the groups are doing across the U.S. and Mexico. Groups are based in the U.S. and now are in Mexico, etc. And so yeah, I mean, I've been like Lisa said, working for a while in animal rights. I've been um, in a tour in the past month, and I was like, also trying to remember about, when I started animal rights and how it's been progressing for me. And, one thing that I've been doing is that I've been always connected to issues in Mexico because, I think that I could help people in Mexico. With some projects. So I've been always connected to animal rights activism in Mexico and in the United States. I've been like, also connecting myself, but not in the same way than Mexico. And finally, I'm more active in Mexico than in the US right now, doing activism. But at some point in these 12 years, I've been in the US, connected to projects, or trying to lend a hand to, obviously, here in the US. Uh, But I feel like, in the past year, I've been like really, really focusing my energies in the projects of Faunaccion in Mexico. And, I think that is good for the movement. Like I say, that we take an interest in supporting other movements that are, other groups that are like not in the U.S. And I'm saying that Mexico is a very important country for the U.S. to learn from and also support. And I've been talking about the fact that the population in the United States, the Latino population, as we know, is growing a lot, and I feel that has not been attended the best in not just in this movement but all the other movements because we have all these different challenges. People that come from Latin America also come from so many different backgrounds and cultures, languages. Then it gets like hard and challenged to also to reach out and to serve um, well to this Latino community because under Latinos I feel this is like a big tent identity where many other identities are under that identity. And so yeah, but besides these considerations, I really think that there is still not too much of an effort in the U.S. to to support people of Latino background in the U.S. And so I feel that in the past 10 years has been changing a lot because, like I say, the other groups from the U.S. are now in Mexico, and so there is more interest. But I think that I think in order to be better allies, talking about the Mexico case, we really think about uh, rather than trying to go to Mexico or support just activism without knowing. I think that we should take an interest into look for people and strong voices in Mexico, for example, that are doing activism now, and do a little bit of research, take a little bit more interest on these people and what they're doing, and then reach out and support somehow. Um, right now I feel that we have so many tools available for us to reach out across the island and to talk to people worldwide. So I think that in our case in Mexico, I think it's very important and very appreciated support too, because whether to be economical support or your technical support or also to share your knowledge of what you're doing in the United States and certain things that will certainly be very well appreciated as a great gesture of solidarity, but also I think that Mexican people can benefit, and so you okay, so I guess we are out of
No, no,
Facebook Live
it's
now,
fine.
right?
I'm trying to do something in the background, so don't worry. Just keep going and pretend that it's all okay because it's fine. I'm just trying to add a little more to our presentation
Okay,
here.
cool.
So
Yeah. So yeah, so what I'm saying is that there are also important things to consider, right? Like when we are working on allyship with other people or other groups, etc. And in this case, even we are all animal rights activists, we are still trying to like build bridges and become allies across, in this case, countries. And this is, I guess, not just for Mexico, but I think in general we have to really uh, be trying to learn a lot when we are doing this allyship and know where people is coming from. And I mean, Mexico is a country that has been colonized, and colonization still going on in Mexico, and Mexican people, especially indigenous people and poor people, still feeling really strongly the effects of colonization. And so this is something to consider when we're going to help the people in Mexico. And I mean, that's true for many countries, since the majority of people um, is from colonized countries in the world. So yeah, it's important to be meaningful of these kind of things, and also try to ask to people, how they wanted to be helped, better help, and what they really need. For example, for me, I've been working, like I say, again, 30 years or so in Mexico, and I found this group, Faunaccion, that is a group that try to bring relevant tools to Mexican activists. And so it's a group for and by Mexican activists. And even though we are all Mexicans and wanted to work in Mexico, before we start with the group, we had we did the research and prepare this questionnaire that we sent to many leaders in the animal rights movement in Mexico, from South, Central, and North Mexico, and we asked 12 questions, and like 45 of them, I think, answered that this questionnaire, and we started to find out whether they were interested in the activists in Mexico, and whether the thing was important to do, or what kind of things they feel that activists in Mexico need to be empowered. And so we were really happy to use that tool and to ask the community. And then when we create Faunaccion, we took these recommendations with a lot of importance, and look at them, and I think that Faunaccion responds to what they were saying, and so uh, we are a group that wanted to empower in so many ways, and via so many different ways of supporting activists, like with knowledge, with professional tools, or other ways too. But anyways, we did that because the first the most strong answer that they had, it was that they wanted to be empowered via training and knowledge of different things, and share, learn, for example, how to make strategy in the local level, for example, or some things that we take for granted, people need very basic skills on computer, for example, um, or different other things. So anyways, we create Faunaccion because that feedback, and I was just saying that because I think that we need to it's not just enough to take an interest and try to help activists elsewhere, but also to try to do it in a manner that is going to be helping, and is going to be empowering the activists, etc. And so it's a bit, if we wanted to be in solidarity, to do a little bit of homework, if to say, to learn more about the country, the culture, who is working there, who to reach out to start conversations, etc. So I encourage everybody that, if you are doing that, not just with Mexico, but with any other country, you wanted to like support their activism, to do that, to be mindful that it's a different culture, and also to try to like research and to listen a lot to the people that you are in communication with, and then decide which way is best to to support once you know more about the country. Um, so yeah, I mean, we also, in the United States, we have um, like this ongoing process where people also, you know, recognize that we have a, much more privilege sometimes than people from other countries. And so, we have like identified certain things that we must try to do to be in allyship. And there is, a lot of people have been talking about that in Facebook, how to be an ally, how to be an ally of, let's say, like feminist groups, or how to be an ally for poor people, or all other different causes and movements. And so um, I think that we should just like try to like, I mean, if we don't know, and if we are in this work, or wanted to consider to support, people in other countries, try to see what they have said in these, groups, and when they talk about these relationships, and how to build a much more effective and meaningful allyship, with people of color, white people, people of poor and rich countries, people of developing countries, and first world countries, etc. So um, this is the most important thing, because we can just go to help people with not putting too much of a mind on that. And sometimes that's like everything is not going to be really helping the movement, or the animals we try to help, because we just didn't do enough of like research and talking to people and listening and we just, sometimes I see that people just go with the first thing that they have, and try to help, because yeah, the situation sometimes is dire, and the dire, I mean, and people wanted to help. But I really strongly encourage people to try to like think through, and to try to like talk to um, as many people as they can from that country that are doing leadership. Try to get different, insight from different people, and then decide, how to help, and what or who to help to. So, for the part of, I was saying at the beginning, working in Mexico, I am in the United States, and so I do a lot of outreach for trying to help, the projects in Faunaccion, and the projects we are in a partnership with other leaders or groups in Mexico. And so I would be happy to, talk to also people individually about if they have specific questions regarding something they wanted to support in Mexico, to, I encourage and welcome, your messages. And I know that there's going to be maybe sharing with you how to get in touch. But yeah, I mean, I would like to, like, if people is interested in helping Mexico, and helping some project in Mexico, some group, and they wanted to hear, my opinion, and talk a little bit more, that I will be happy to do that here. Uh, and obviously, since I work for Faunaccion, and that's my group, I am gonna talk more about this group when I go out, obviously, because it's my work. And we have excellent projects right now. We have a one educational project that is going around different cities in the country, and putting together a workshop on activism and from talking about also speciesism and how to fight in their city against speciesism. So this is one project that is going to be going around for cities in Mexico, cities that people usually don't have a um, the luck of the fortune to activists who can go other parts of the country to to conferences, etc. So we choose these four cities because they are really not accessible, and they are a little bit marginalized. So we think that it's good to go and share with these people what we are trying to put together for them. So this is one project, and then other project that I'm very excited to share with you is called El Molcajete, and this is a food truck project. It's a food education project on wheels, and we just started this past January our first stage. So basically, what we do is to try to talk to people about food in a different way. We talk about you know trying to be interested and recover indigenous diet that is vegan too. And so we may not try to, like at the beginning, like tell people too much about veganism. Sorry, but we wanted to get people interested in our traditional foods, the food that we've been using for hundreds of years in Mexico. They're our main staples that for the past 50 years for sure have been like under attack by capitalism, by the fast food industry, by the process of colonization before, etc. And so we did a project that it was to prepare for the Molcajete rollout too, and we print a cookbook that has all these like indigenous recipes, and we did very low budget because we don't have a lot of money, but we print some, and now we are on the process to reprinting this booklet because we wanted to like bring it to online and make it available for people to like download individual recipes and copy them. And right now it's in color, so it's going to be black and white, so it's very cheap for people to download if they wanted to download a recipe. But so we are in the middle of doing this, and we roll out Molcajete in January, and we basically now are going to places that where we are invited, like mainly schools, like high schools or colleges, mainly educational institutions right now. We go once a week, and we bring the food truck that is a really beautiful truck, and it has a mural that talks about the history of Mexican food, indigenous food, and it has all these beautiful illustrations of our main foods, and then in the other side has a little bit of this utopia of a place where people is the eating all these beautiful amazing foods, and it's also like being knowledgeable about where food come from and our own foods. Is that like that's the kind of idea of the mural. So we bring the mural, like students come out, see the mural, we talk to them, and sometimes we are invited to give talks, for many students inside facilities, and sometimes we also bring foods and give like food samplings. Other times we do cooking shows, etc. So we have been doing that, and we have been having really, really good response from Mexican people. And now we just are getting ready to make the project more active and more present in the central area of Mexico, which is the most strong culinary, where is from where culinary traditions come from, and indigenous culinary traditions. And basically the whole Mexican cuisine, the indigenous cuisine comes from that area, from central area. So we are very excited to go now a little bit, not just inside the Mexico City area, but going through like some other cities in the region and make it like a regional project instead of just a Mexico City project, because Mexico City is like very centralized city. Everything happened there. So I'm very happy that we are gonna reach out, other provinces and more people with this project, not just the people in Mexico City. And so yeah, we are, working now with some institutions and to bring in the Molcajete and talking about food reclamation and trying to like cook with people and trying to like share recipes. And we're very eager to see what people have say. And before, when we were giving samples, people always talk about recipes that they have, and we're very enthusiastic about talking about family recipes and how they used to cook like that, etc. And so I think we will ignite really interesting conversations, and this is one of the main goals. And so later on we will have more another program that we'll offer is that talking about seeds and also health and uh, like also going to places and cooking with people, etc. But we are just like getting together. I mean, getting ready for the next stage that will happen starting January, of 2019. And so this is our signature project in Faunaccion, and I'm very excited. It has taken a lot of work, this kind of project, but now is out, and it's a different way of also talking about the things people elsewhere are talking as just go vegan. It's for us. We don't say that go vegan, but we say like to talk about our food and encourage people to remember about what we eat like 20 years ago or something. And I think that that's very important, and that's a different way of talking about what we talk when we talk about going vegan. And so I think that this is also interesting because it's a different way of doing the same thing, helping the environment, helping animals, and helping humans that we try to do when we are talking about veganism. But it's interesting that is we don't use these words, and we are not making an emphasis on global veganism, but our diet as Mexicans. And so I think that that is a really interesting thing, because if there are other countries and other people that have also different ways, and they can find those ways of speaking about, veganism and about respect to nature and animals, I think that is very, um, great, and something that we should definitely support in the animal rights community. I think that once we become very strong locally in different places, in different localities, then we're going to be very strong, also globally or more universally. Um, and so I think for me, to find out a way of talking about these things in Mexico that resonates with people is something that I'm very interested in, and I'm very looking forward to see how goes in this stage that El Molcajete is going to be more active and going to many more places and big events, etc. So we're going to be learning a lot, but hopefully we can also inspire some other people, if they have a different way of talking about veganism and respect animal rights or, etc., to do it, So because I think it's important, like I say, for the movement to have a strong local presence. And so, you know, I just like from my own perspective, my own experience, encourage you to be always very open and to be always really willing to to listen a lot and to ask questions to other people because um, you know I think sometimes people maybe knows more than other people, but don't ask questions to locals um, about things that they're doing or like situations or etc. etc. And I don't think that is something that is very good. I think that if we are not hearing the people that we're trying to help, I think that if we just go and we just assume something and talk to one person that we don't know very well, and then decide something without bringing more people in the community, to the conversations, then I think that we're gonna be on the risk of, instead of doing good, uh, creating problems or dividing more the community. And so I always encourage, to listen and to talk a lot with local people. And if the problem is the language, well, I mean, you get make sure that you get a good, very good interpreter. I know that a lot of people speak Spanish and a lot of people speak English, but to interpret is a very different thing than to speak a language. And so, I mean, many things happen that I've seen when doing projects internationally that have to do with not having a very good communication and also not doing very good with translation. I've been in a situations where I am, not the person in charge of doing the interpreting or doing translation, and I see how the job has not been done well because we just invite somebody that told us that speak Spanish or English or whatever, and any language. But I think that we should go through that and make sure that we have a person that speak a very good the language and is a good interpreter and talk to people, and then make sure that everybody's on board and you are hearing all these local different perspectives from different local leaders, and then I think that we is more safe to to move and support something. But I think that besides all that is it's important to learn from whether we are like, let's say in this case, supporting Mexico, because ultimately there are a lot of Mexican Americans, Mexicans that live in the United States, and we are like a group that is growing, and so whatever we learn in our relationship with the Mexicans in Mexico or Latino people, if we are supporting any other Latin country, let's say, we you can also use it for your relationship here with people, and I think that one great way to help is like to take an interest to to support the leaders in the United States that are working right now with their communities, whether it be uh, African American or like Latino or more specifically indigenous, or any other group and ethnicity that are already out there and working. I think that maybe we should take a little bit of time and find those leaders and go ahead and support them here in the United States. And I think that we all can learn from what we have learned so far about the case of Mexico as a country that has not been, I mean, really well supported until the past 10 years, and learn from that while we are moving up to support other countries, because this movement now is global, and it's very, very important that globally people support it, and that people from the poor countries also join and enrich this movement with new ways of speaking about it, new ideas and campaigns, and that new ways of helping them too, as poor countries. And so yeah, I invite you to take an interest in your communities and the diversity in your communities wherever you are in the United States, and try to reach out across the aisle. Try, like, some people sometimes, this is people just is shy or has been marginalized, or uh, need a little bit, so reach out and then learn, and then support them, not try to uh, you know like just invite them to things or to help you with your things, but rather find out also if they have ideas and things that they wanted to work with their own community and how they want to work, and then just support them, because I think that's very important. I think that our movement, animal rights, is one of the youngest movements, and we can learn a lot from the mistakes of other older movements. So um, yeah, so I don't know if there are like some specific questions. I would be happy to answer specific questions, and I hope that has been useful.
Yes, actually, Watko, thank you so, so much. This is exactly what we needed in terms of our outreach to people in different countries. It's wonderful to have you on board and with so much experience. I think that's what's very valuable about what you bring is your years of experience, and even things that people don't often connect with, the importance of listening, really listening to the people that we're interacting with, the people that we want to go vegan or to help the animals in their area, and to find new ways of communicating these messages. So I want to invite anyone here who has a question, if you are able to turn on your webcam and join us. We'd love to see your faces on this webinar. Yay! And also, if you're with us on the phone, you can press *4, and then you can actually just ask your question, and Wako will respond. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can also type your question into the chat box. And that's a great way, even if you're in the webinar, to type into the chat box or on the news feed, and then we'll get to hear from you. So, hey, hi, and
Okay.
yes. Anybody have a
Can you hear?
question?
Yeah, can you hear
Yes,
me? Oh,
yes, we
great.
Yeah.
can.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your talk. It was wonderful to hear from you. And I, I'm not very familiar with some of the words that you said, the names of your groups. So I don't know if you have a website or if they could be posted somewhere, because I would like to learn more and refer back to them. I wonder if you have heard of the Anonymous for the Voiceless groups. And a friend of mine has been down to Mexico, and he said they were doing very well there, and there was a lot of food. I think that was in Mexico City. But it sounded like you were saying kind of not be so out there. I don't, but be more, well, like you said, talk about the food. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on
Uh-huh. So yeah, I think Lisa, are you gonna put some of the like the address for Faunaccion so people can look it up?
Yes, I will
And
do that in the chat box right now.
okay,
And hopefully
thank
I've
you.
got the right one. Looks like Faunaccion.org/en/.
Yeah, thank you. And so yeah, and a relationship to Anonymous, and I see that in Mexico in the past 5 years there is an explosion of activism among very young people, and there are many collectives and groups, and one of those groups, Anonymous for the Voiceless, is doing really good in Mexico, and like a lot of people participates. They like it, that the fact that they can do their own organizing and participate in something, the young people in Mexico. And so I think that's very positive to do. I think that, Anonymous for the Voiceless is a group that is international, but is also born elsewhere too. And so it would be like for groups very interesting always to move when they move forward with work, also to see how the locals are reacting, and whether to, I don't know too much about Anonymous structure or how they work, but to give, peoples in networks much more power so they can do things, even if there is a little bit different from what they do, and they can do it, they can do that. Some things that they think that can be connecting more culturally with the people, for example. And so, I've been hearing critiques from people that are not animal rights activists at all. They are just people that I know, and they have seen Anonymous in Mexico, and they have like all these like really funny comments like, wow, how these kids are so sad, and they have always like black, like they going to a funeral, and if they're going to talk about animals, why they don't talk about things that are positive, always negative, or things like that. That, I mean, those are very much like Mexico sensibility. And
it?
so what I'm saying about groups is like, if it seems that it's working with people and it's like really, sharing a message with people, I mean, that's great. But sometimes things that work in other countries don't work in other countries necessarily. So I just think that moving forward, all the groups and collectives, it should be interesting for them that to consider also, you know, give room to the people in these different localities to also, put their own local distinctive, footprint or something. I don't know if I'm making sense with that, but
Yeah,
yeah. So that's what I think.
thank
Wonderful. That's great. So just checking to see if anyone else has any questions. Like I mentioned, you're welcome to tune in
Yeah,
to
it's Tessa
Working
here.
American. Hi, Tessa. Hi. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I have rather general question to Wotko. As you know, I'm in Sydney, so it's not America, but we are very interested in the animal rights movement all over the world. I know very little about what's happening in Mexico, although I've got somebody from Mexico as a part of my family, so that I should be more knowledgeable. But yeah, they still live in the United States, so. And they are still animal flesh eaters, so so I will have to work on them a bit more. But anyway, my question is, do you have like a vegan society in Mexico, like a vegan society? So that's one question. The other one, do you have like how broadly the movement is spread in Mexico City and Mexico country? Is it something which is because I have never have heard anything from Mexico, so that's why I'm puzzled, and I'm so happy to listen to your words. It means that things are happening, but how popular, how open are people to listen to your message in your country? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Tessa. Thank you for being here and for this question. I think it's very interesting questions that you ask, and I'm thinking that in Mexico, for the second question, some part of the question, I think that the animal rights movement, as like I mentioned, has grown a lot, especially among young people, like from 15 to late 20s are a lot of activists from that kind of age, but it's mainly in cities like Mexico City, big cities that have this presence of animal rights, and like smaller populations, I don't think they have too much of that yet. Uh, and so I see like, places, let's say, with 500,000 people, which are many cities in Mexico. I think that they start to having a much more presence of collectives of animal rights. And what can you repeat the first question? What it was the first question?
The first question was, do you have a vegan society?
Yeah,
in your country?
Yeah, I don't believe that we have a vegan society in Mexico. No, not even a vegetarian society. Um, I may be wrong, but I never heard in all my years of activism about making reference. So I don't think we do have that.
So if people are interested in changing their diet to plant-based, would they have a place to go where they can actually learn, like a central place? Or is this only your organization, Faunaccion, only the one place where people can actually reach for help in their journey towards veganism?
Mm-hmm.
The only yours here?
Yeah, in Mexico there are a lot of groups that are like now giving a lot of information for free about veganism, and my organization is also doing that, reaching out. But like I say, we don't talk about veganism at all. We talk about indigenous diet. But all the recipes and all the things that we are sharing obviously are vegan. It's just that we haven't talked too much about that. But like people, the only places that they can go is to the sites that are being set from those organizations to learn more. And it seems like, there's a lot of interest in Mexico, and people, when you give information, people really take it and read it and etc. But, Faunaccion is going to try to make a lot this about cooking, this about sharing recipes, this about, having this kind of work with people online. And so that's what we are like working hard on, trying to get our cooking recipe book that can be easily downloaded so people can like interact with us. And the people, even with the food truck, are going to bring one of these recipes and give like, sampling and, give away. And then they're going to talk to people about this and encourage people to use that for free for them. And so, there is different ways that for obviously the groups here that come from the United States, they have all this information, white vegan and, go vegan and all that. And so they're giving away that. But the way we are doing it is through our history and heritage and what people already do and know in Mexico, like especially women. So we are gonna see how that works, and our main tool is gonna be talk about recipes and the history that because everybody in Mexico has this history of dishes that they don't no longer cook, but they remember are and they are vegan. And so I think that people can be engaged and can be like motivated to look back differently at their traditional, dishes too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your explanation. I really appreciate that. If I had 1 minute more, I would ask another question, but I probably don't.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
fine.
Yeah,
Yes, go
yes,
ahead.
Lisa, it's fine.
okay? Because I'm so happy to hear about your activities because, for example, in Australia we have obviously, First Nation people who are Aboriginals, but unfortunately, if we go back to their original diet, they actually eat kangaroos. So, and that's even if some some groups, some mobs, they call themselves, will respect kangaroos as their totem. But in general, so when people now would say, oh, okay, we are going to, if Aboriginal people can eat kangaroos, we are going to eat kangaroos. And that's a really, really big shame because you can see a lot of restaurants serving kangaroo flesh, and it's the worst ever tragedy for our wildlife here. So I'm so happy to hear that your indigenous people didn't have this sort of, the tendency to eat animal flesh. And so that's maybe just a comment. But the second one, I was thinking, do you have any, like a big supermarket which can be approached and with all these indigenous plant-based products? Like we have more and more appearing here, and I guess in America too. So I don't know if there are any plans to approach on the larger scale using the larger chains of shop, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I think that there is people now working in Mexico, more trying to help entrepreneurs, local producers, and people like that, because veganism is exploited in Mexico a lot. And so I think that pretty soon we will have more organizing around, that. Like in Mexico and in Faunaccion, we are working, a lot with, like I mentioned, it's like, reclaiming and rescuing of our cuisine more than anything. And not really that much with like businesses or entrepreneurs, but there is somebody that is part of Faunaccion, and is also a person that has a business background. And so she's doing a lot in that area in Mexico. And in fact, they're going to have the first gathering for entrepreneurs in Mexico on February 1st. And they are trying to make a union in Mexico of vegan entrepreneurs. So that's cool, because that will have give them a more, presence and some power, some goodies that they want to have if they are not that kind of entity in Mexico. And so that's interesting, and I'm like looking forward to to go to this event and to learn, because she's gonna invite entrepreneurs from all over Mexico, some that are already being very successful with their local products. And so I have a very good feeling about this event, that and in 2019, much and more local producers can get more organized, and do that, like you were saying, go and offer their products to big companies and etc. in Mexico. I think that we are moving to that.
Great, thank you so much. And I have seen one more question, which is on the notes. I think that's it. I am taking too much of your time.
It's okay.
So I just was asking if you have some Mexican website which can be listed somewhere, which are interested in the vegan world, because I would love to send it to my Mexican cousin.
to a Mexican website?
Yeah. If I can find anywhere some Mexican website which are interested or working on vegan world, obviously a peaceful vegan world, because I would love to send it to my Mexican cousin.
Okay, so can we maybe type that, Lisa? Can I type it for you?
Yes,
Okay,
you can type it into the chat box. There's
oh, right here, right? Okay, yeah. Let me type it for you, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah,
so I typed the website for Faunaccion is in there.
yeah,
If there's any others, you can do that.
yeah. I type comer para sanar.
Okay.
This is one that I know, and you know, there was another one, but I think that they are not anymore open. That one is from Anima Naturalis. They have a blog, Anima Naturalis, for the vegan world and vegan products and stuff. So those are the two ones that I remember, and obviously all the organizations now in Mexico, like Mercy for Animals and all these other organizations, have a, you know, a blog where they talk about veganism and everything.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. How is thank you in Mexican?
Well, I am in Atlanta, and it's cold and rainy today.
Yes, but what's the word for thank you in Mexican?
Yeah, and I think in Mexico it's starts to get cold too.
Okay, Lisa, maybe you can convey my question.
Yes. I think Wotko, I think she was asking about how do you say thank you, and it's muchas gracias. Is how to say thank you.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Sí, I can hear what you're saying, and sometimes I hear echo there.
Okay. That could be. So thank you for your questions, Tessa. That's so nice to hear your voice and to have your participation. We really love that here on the webinar. We like to hear from you, and it's really great to have this way of connecting over the miles and actually in different countries even. We're in multiple countries right now. So thank you for doing that. And if anyone else has a question, just before we're about towards the close of our webinar, and if anyone else has a question, you're welcome to tune in. It looks like, Becky says, thank you so much. And she loves seeing the rainbow colors on your web page. She really likes that. And we also had another comment on our Facebook Live that somebody was very grateful to you for the work that you're doing and very impressed with the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. So it's great. I mean, thank you for organizing this, Lisa, and I learned a lot. So now I know that there is another ways of talking to people, such as these webinars are great. So I'm very grateful that you invited me.
Oh, yes, it's really my pleasure. In fact, this is a great way for you to connect. Maybe you can do some webinars in Mexico and galvanize that population that's really growing, like you mentioned, and even people in various areas, because you can also do the same thing on a phone. It could be on a computer, so you don't have to have a computer to do this kind of international talking. And
yeah, it's really good. And I mean, I already got the basic steps, so I'm gonna keep using because I think that is very important, and to have even this way to dissolve all these distances and problems with being so far away. This is great.
Wonderful. Well, that is an excellent idea. And I think I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone for your patience with us today. We had a few technical difficulties, but now we're out, we're rocking and rolling. We've got this on Facebook Live, and also we'll have a recording. So if you've registered for the webinar, we will send you that link. You'll probably get it tomorrow. And also just want to let everyone know, so I'm here again. My name's Lisa Levinson. I'm with In Defense of Animals, and we offer this webinar once a month as part of our sustainable activism campaign to provide emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists. So this has been a really interesting conversation. Our next one next month will be with Stephen Wise. He is the director and founder of the Non-Human Rights Project. So again, we'll get some really interesting information from the legal point of view. And if you're with us, we also have a webinar of vegan spirituality online gathering next week, where we'll be speaking with a gal named Angel who is in Hawaii. She's a yogini, and she'll be talking about doing vegan advocacy and sharing her story from within the yoga community. So again, thank you, Wotko, for joining us, and to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank
Really
you,
been
everyone.
lovely, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm actually signing off from the Parliament of World Religions, where I'm here trying to promote veganism to the spiritual community. So we'll share more about that later. I know that Wotko's very interested as well. So lots moving and shaking
have
in
a
the
great
world.
time there. Learn a lot, and break a leg. No, it's too violent.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Vegan blessings.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.